Welcome. So today we are going to be looking a bit more in detail at orc skin. Obviously on the part 1 video we did this already, but not in quite as detail as what we're going to go through with this today. So as like last time, the model has been sort of had the colour sprayed onto it already. It's just had a sort of mid coat of Deathweld Forest and Elysian Green just sprayed over the top of it, just to help it really, like, I really hate base coating with a passion, so anything I can do to avoid that will make my life a lot better, so that's why I start with this. After that, I've just gone back in, as you can see at the moment, just with a bit of a mix of the two, but higher towards the Elysian Green. Just starting to define where my highlights are going to be and just start to add some more colour to it. As you can note, as I'm doing it, all the colour is going towards the highest point, so I'm aiming my brush always to sort of go towards where I want the most paint to go. With all of these, you'll be able to see that obviously this is completely unedited. This is how I did it, so you'll see from the obviously beginning stage all the way right to the end. I did a little bit extra at the end because I wasn't quite happy when I finished first time around and then carried on with it, but everything you're seeing on here is whatever I went with. So now you can see I'm starting to add in some actual shade to it, some more colour to it. So this is that sort of Doomball brown violet mix with the Deathweld Forest, just to get that sort of I suppose it's a bit rosy, isn't it, in colour, but that sort of deep purplish shade, and obviously just trying to just find out where all the recesses are with it. Also go over bits on the face, the knuckles and everything to help just add some different colour to the skin, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And so I'm just picking out these areas of where I want it. It's not a complete solid coat, it's a bit more on the watery side. It's not a glaze, wouldn't call this a glaze, but it's definitely not as thick as if I was portraying a layer as what I would do with the other coats. Also there, I'm just going in with an even more thin down layer, just sort of pulling it out towards where I've just put that colour in. So this was the original colour that I'd have used first time, just going back in there, just helping to smooth it over, just so that that transition isn't as rough as when it was. It's got the base colour in it already, the Deathweld Forest, so it goes in quite nicely, but again it's just to help smooth it over a bit more. You can kind of push and pull this both ways, add more shade to it and then glaze back over the top just to help smooth it in. It depends on how much contrast you want in this and how deep you want it to go. And again now I'm just going back in with a bit more Elysian Green into that first mixture, just highlighting the same areas again that I did last time, just leaving a tiny little bit more of an area than I did last time. I don't want to completely cover what I did last time, otherwise you're just going to, at some point you're going to get such a stark transition where you actually have missed out a few of your layers. Obviously a layer should progressively just cover less and less more areas. I would note that obviously looking back at this now, as I'm obviously recording this over the top of the video, the paint is probably a bit thinner than I'd want it to. As you can see, there isn't great coverage with it. I'm not really getting an opaque layer as I probably would have wanted, so it probably would have helped to have added some more paint to it as I was doing it, just to make it a bit more thicker. It just meant I'd had to do more layers to get it to a colour I'm happy with. And again, I'm just going back in with a bit more of a glaze layer, just to smooth out again, just to make it not so rough on the transition. So you should be using glazes quite a lot, just a thinned down version of what you were doing. It doesn't want to be like a wash. If it's like a wash, it's not really going to have the effect we want. Depending on how smooth you want this to be, you can go with quite a few coverages of this to help blend it in, or not as many in this case, because we want to add a bit of roughness to this, which obviously you'll see as we progress. Gone in with a higher level. This is more towards Elysian green, as it would be naturally. Again, picking out them high points all over the skin. Just a very, very gradual way of doing it. Just taking my time, making sure that I'm not jumping super far just yet. Especially with skin, it does have a level of smoothness to it, even if we will have a bit of texture in it. We don't want it to look like rubble, so we need to make sure that we're just taking the jump a bit gently, especially when you're starting out. This can be quite difficult. How much paint do we use? How much of the highlight? How much of the sort of mid-tone? A lot of this will just be pushing and pulling the paint around until you're sort of happy, and you'll see a few areas like I'm just doing now. I'm kind of bringing the colour up a little where I'm not happy it's too dark from what I want, especially with skin. Every area does not want to be a island on its own, surrounded by deep shade. We want to have a difference in shade, so most extreme areas with the deepest shade, and then as we get more towards where our light source would be, our shade area is not going to be as deep. Once again, you can just see just glazing over it, just bringing that colour up to as we want. What you can see now is we've got quite a nice smooth colour all over the miniature at the minute. There's not enough high contrast in this at the moment, so I'm just again adding more of that to it, and you can just see there just a bit more of a dotting motion, not trying to make my strokes as smooth. The one thing, once I'd finished this miniature, obviously a bit too late, realised I could probably have gone in with a bit more on the high side of the contrast. I could have added in more highlights to it, maybe shaded a few areas downwards a little. Unfortunately ran out of time to show that, but following these sort of steps and just changing the amount of contrast in there is really quite simple. It's just glazing it downwards if you want it to be darker, and glazing it upwards once you've put in that highest colour again. So you might find that you do actually spend a lot of time, if you're looking for that right sort of consistency of colour, just going back up and down your sort of paints, working out if you're happy, have we got enough high points in this. Hopefully with doing these, if there's anything you want to see in regards to the orcs or other miniatures, then feel free to comment on the videos of the type of stuff you want me to do. I have got the next project lined up and different bits, but I'm quite open to trying a few different miniatures and just what people would like to see. There's just an increase of that Oregon camo into the Elysian green now to help just improve our high areas, just dotting it in places and improving where that contrast should be, trying again not to completely erode everything we've done previously and keep it quite nice and orcish. I've got a certain sort of tone with these guys that I've gone with. Mostly the commandos have a similar tone, though a couple of them have a slightly change in tone where I've kind of gone a bit higher, a bit darker, just because between the 10 of them it just makes it look a bit more interesting if they're all slightly different in tone. Even between your own sort of ethnicity you have varying degrees of colour between people, and obviously the light and darkness in their skin and other bits will just change that, so it just makes it up a bit more realistic in that sense. With certain colours, as you get higher, the sort of pigments in them become more pronounced. So obviously I'm thinking of like yellows, whites, oranges, insanely more difficult to get that nice opaque layer in, so we need to be really gentle with them, try and get that opaque layer in there nicely as we can, because these paints will show your previous layer through really well. So if you haven't got that opaque layer and you try going up to the next sort of colour as you're going with, you'll just get more of your mid-tone show through than your actual highlight. So we're definitely looking at least 3 to 4 coats of each colour per time, going over it, just making sure that that layer is really nice in there. Some colours are better than others, but also every paint can be slightly different in its makeup. Even if you have 2 of the same paint, same brand, same colour, one can be very thin, one can be very thick, so it's kind of getting a handle on your own paints and what you need to do with them. I find this colour is quite forgiving, even though it's slightly yellow in appearance. You get some nice highlights in there, quite good. It's that I'm sure they brought it out when they did the Death Guard, the new version. This was one of the colours they brought out then. I might be wrong, but I seem to think it was around that time. So again, I'll be just getting that colour into them high areas and then just glazing it back in as and where I think it needs a little bit. So, and again, just adding more sort of spots to this now. This one's got more of a sort of freckled appearance to it. It's slightly more textured than maybe what I did on the last Orc, the one with the battering ram in the 2-part series. Few areas now that are sort of getting that, what I at the time would have thought was my last sort of highlights, getting towards where I'd have wanted them to be. As I said before, I went back in with this, as you'll see, and touched it a little bit more. I just wasn't happy, but you can just see there the sort of freckle effect starting to take shape. Obviously I've done a lot more on the miniature by the time you see it on the next video. Now this sort of method works the same regardless of the paints you use. So any sort of faces, I have got a video coming up on smaller faces. Faramir from the Lord of the Rings series, I did the face and hair on him, which will be another video coming soon, so you can sort of see it on a more sort of human tone. But you can follow these sort of guidelines on any sort of layering technique. You change the colours and you'll be fine. Again, with this last sort of layer, I'm just going on with more of a glaze to it, just bringing the colour up in some areas I wasn't happy with. It was a bit too on the dark side in some areas for what I wanted. I wanted to just bring that whole tone up. Orcs have quite deep areas in their faces in some bits, so I didn't mind, like on the side of the jaw, it's got that dagger in the way, so it's going to stop light getting to there, so I didn't mind it as much from the side of his face, but obviously the top of his head and some of the arm bits, I just wasn't happy with how the contrast was with it. I just wanted to bring it up a little bit on there. Finished as I finished him for this video, the eyes and the teeth just to show off the face of it. This is the point where I was planning to leave him, and as you can see, just like magic, the blue piece is what I did earlier, and we will have more colour to most of the piece finished. As I said before, I was not happy with it, and if you find this where you're not happy with your contrast, all I'm doing now is just going back in higher tone and just adding it into more areas, and then I shall proceed to glaze back upwards to it to blend it in quite nicely. I probably could have gone with a bit more shade in some areas and probably brought it up a bit higher, so I think I'd probably have done that if I'd have had more time. You can see I'm just doing in the same sort of fashion as what I did in the previous one, just dotting it in areas, really just sort of creating that nice texture with it. Carry on for what I did before. If I'd have gone with quite smooth straight lines, I'd have just gone straight over what I'd done previous. So just again, just adding that texture in there really nicely. Once I'd added all these in, I felt a lot happier with how it was from where I'd left it. So if there's anything any question wise on this and anything you would like to know, or any questions on the process or how we've done it, then feel free to either put it in the comments or find me on other channels. Just drop me a message and let me know anything you want to know about this whole process. In regards to orcs, this is probably going to be the last orc for a little while. Obviously there's 3 videos on this now, so we'll probably progress to something a lot more chaosy, shall we say.